Welcome to the Sports Roundtable powered by ProjectSpurs.com. I am Michael DeLeon, your host. Alongside me, as always, Paul Garcia, our lead writer over at Project Spurs, and Jeff Garcia is coming in over the phone from New York. He is our content director, and we're here to talk about Spurs Jazz, the series. We gave our series preview last time, and now there's been 2 games in San Antonio, and now Game 3 tonight in Salt Lake City. And, we can't, I guess, talk about Game 1 and 2 without talking about Tony Parker. And the series he's had, he's averaging about 23 points, 8.5 assists per game right now. Mm-hmm. We kind of talked about the poor, I guess, pick-and-roll defense that Utah had. Are you surprised? I know you picked Sweet, but are you surprised at all by how it's gone so far?
No, not surprised at all. I mean, Tony Parker, he's in the MVP conversation this year. Obviously, LeBron James is most likely going to win it. Yeah. But I mean, the guy, he can beat you either way, either passing or scoring. And in Game 1, it was his scoring. I mean, 28 points. In Game 2, it was his passing. I mean, he started off getting into the paint again because they're, as you said, the wretched pick-and-roll defense. And he was just hitting Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard, got those young guys' confidence up, and they started knocking out some shots. Next thing you know, they're the second 2 leading scorers behind Parker. And they don't have Utah. They threw so many looks at him defensively in Game 2. I mean, Coach Corbin said he was going to do that. I mean, there was Gordon Hayward on him. There was Paul Millsap on him at times. I mean, they did a few little double teams here and there. It's just anything they threw at him didn't work. They went under screens, over screens, didn't matter. Parker just did what he wanted against them. So, I mean, and actually, one interesting note is after the game, Tim Duncan even said, I was in the locker room, and Tim Duncan said that Tony Parker's seen everything already in his career. I mean, he could see any kind of everything a defense throws at him. Right. And he says that he's already at that point where he's just going to stay aggressive regardless. He's going to find a solution to whatever they throw at him. It's
like he said when they talked about with him and wanting to put him on the floor or whatever. It's like he's heard that through every series so far he's been in, and same thing with this. I mean, he's seen everything. Jeff, you were the one, I think you put up a video about how they tried to put Gordon Hayward on him and what happened there. And do you think they can really put anybody on him to contain him at this point?
No, at this point, no. I mean, if you're looking at his stats, in the regular season, he averaged, 7.7 assists. In this series against the Jazz, he's averaging 8.5 assists. In this series as well, one thing that's being underrated and not being talked about is that he's actually upping his rebounding per game. In this series, he's averaging 3 rebounds, as opposed to the regular season, he was averaging just a little over 2. So he's contributing across the board. His shooting percentages are up in this series as opposed to the regular season. And like you mentioned, Gordon Hayward tried his hand at defending Parker, and he just made him look silly. I mean, seriously, guys, did y'all see that video clip?
Yes.
That was like one of many circus shots he's made this series so far. So, yeah, I mean, we saw that. But, aside from Tony Parker, what else has gone right for this team? I mean, it's funny because a lot of people have been emailing. I know you were on a radio show the other day, just been getting emails from other blogs and stuff, and they're saying, "Oh, is this the best we've seen this person?" It really hasn't been the best. I mean, some of it's gone right, but is there anything that's gone wrong or that could be improved?
As you said, they haven't really shown a lot of key areas where they've had any kind of weaknesses, especially against the Jazz right now. As far as this series goes, I don't think there's going to be anything evident. I mean, the Jazz came in with all the big size, but the Spurs have just quieted that down. I mean, the Jazz are still winning the rebounding battle, but you're going to get a lot of rebounds when your teammates can't make jump shots, and that's what's happening in the Jazz's case. Yeah. They have a lot of offensive rebounds right now because all their jumpers they put up aren't going in. So of course, the big man.
Their numbers that last game percentage, I think, like 20-something%.
Well, I disagree with Paul. I mean, there are certain things that this Spurs team is allowing the Jazz to do, and they're just that needs to be addressed now that the series has shifted to Utah. They're letting Utah get to the line.
Yes, okay.
They're getting to the line 27 times a game, and the good thing about it is that the Spurs are just shooting like this insane percentage from the 3-point line, which is kind of overshadowing it. But they're getting, like I said, getting to the line 27 times, and the Jazz are making 81% of their free throw shots. That's kind of keeping them in games until the wheels fall off and the Spurs just obliterate them. So trying to not allow them to get to the free throw line should be something they should be focusing on now that the series is in Utah.
That's a really good point. And I think as you look at a guy like Gordon Hayward, in Game 1, he killed him from the free throw line, 12 free throws. In Game 2, they made their adjustment on him. He had 2. And you're right, Jeff. They do get to the line in a lot of times. The Spurs are still fouling them less than the Jazz foul them, but you're right. They're definitely winning that free throw battle at the line. So beating Utah.
And it's obvious too. They're rebounding. They have the edge in rebounding as well. I mean, but then again, all Spurs fans knew heading into this series that Jazz was just a bigger team, and they were more than likely probably be out rebounded.
Right. But I think we're also kind of nitpicking also because there's not a lot. I mean, there has been some things. They've been a little sloppy. I mean, we saw, passes still out of bounds and a little bit. That's the point of what I was saying about how this isn't the best I've seen them all year. We've seen them better, but still they have a pretty heavy lead over the Jazz going into Game 3 tonight. Let's talk about one more thing before we go into our Game 3 coverage and our preview. Boris Diaw, they inserted him into the starting lineup to start this series. I think very underrated move, and he's done really well. You were talking to me about what he's done so far this series.
He's done well on both sides of the ball. He's kept Paul Millsap relatively quiet. Millsap usually gets those free throws and gets the line usually when either Blair or Matt Bonner are on him most of the time. And Diaw, just defensively, he's done his work, and then offensively, he's been tremendous. I think he's shooting 82% in the series,
That's just
10 points a game, the assists. I mean, you see him throwing no looks to Tony Parker, out to the three-point shooting guys. He's feeding Tim Duncan. I mean, he's more than he's giving you more than what you thought you were going to be getting with him. I mean, especially as a starter. And I think ever since that Lakers game, I think Pop found that when he would put him in Game 2, that he found that he can trust him as a starter.
Jeff, I think Paul said like two words there. They're just like right over here. He said feeding and Boris Diaw. I know you've had jokes about this so far, but what have you thought about his play so far? I know you've been a little tough on him since he's come to the Spurs, but what have you thought?
Well, I think this is a situation where if they were going to continue playing Blair, that would have hurt them in the long run. He's just too undersized versus guys like Favors and Jefferson and Millsap. And with Blair not playing and getting spot minutes, in one game, I'm hoping to read DNP KFC bucket of chicken. I want that to happen for Blair.
Well, they've done DNP old for Tim Duncan, so I mean, I wouldn't be too surprised to see that.
One thing you see about Diaw is you made the joke about the overweight thing when he came into the team with the team. And, he's still getting conditioned, but actually he's using his weight to an advantage. I mean, he put Jefferson and Millsap in the post and just attacked them with it. They could not hold him back, and he just got to the rim at will. And then also Millsap cannot move him. I mean, or get around screens where Jefferson can because of his weight. He's actually using it the right way. It hasn't been a problem,
I think, really.
Well, Millsap had himself a good game in Game 2.
Yeah. Well, I just think that so far in this series, I think that move really. You're right. Blair would have been a tough guard, I think, for Jefferson or Millsap. That would have been tough on him. Diaw has got that versatility. He can go outside and inside, and he's done well so far this series. We'll see how that goes into Game 3. But let's talk about Game 3 a little bit. This series so far, Paul, you and I have seen it all, and it's kind of hard to even say what the Jazz would have to do. What would they have to do in order to win a game?
It starts with DH, Devin Harris. He needs to show up. He's not making Tony Parker work on defense, and so Tony Parker is like it's just like he's just going to town on them on offense because he's not having to waste his energy on defense. Devin Harris is averaging more turnovers, 3.5, than he has assists, which is like 1.5. So if Harris doesn't wake up and make it somewhat competitive against Parker, then Tony's going to continue to have his way, and it just shreds the Utah's lineup, and the shooters get shots, Parker gets shots, everybody gets shots for the Spurs.
No, I agree. Devin just hasn't been Devin Harris that we were used to. I mean, they made a lot of comparisons about Devin when he was with the Mavs and how he had Parker had a tough time with him, but there's not the same Devin Harris. No. Definitely not the same Tony Parker. Jefferson, anything they can do to get back into the series tonight?
My focus, if I'm Utah and their fans, I'm looking at Al Jefferson. He just hasn't been able to get it going, especially against the defense of Tim Duncan. Duncan is getting off of him pushing him away, from the comfort zone. He's just not looking at the Al Jefferson we saw in the regular season. So if they can get Al Jefferson going and really exploit the Spurs donut team that they really are, then the Jazz could get back into the series. But before I continue, I would like you to know I did not punch the glass covering the fire extinguisher prior to this game. When I was looking at some of these stats about the Spurs, getting to the free throw line. Yeah, I did not punch that. So.
Yeah, well, let's hope not. I mean, you have like a baseball-looking hand right now. I saw that picture; it's pretty gross. But yeah, I mean, it's just tough for the Jazz right now. I mean, they've tried everything. It seems like they talked a lot before Game 2. Nothing happened. Devin Harrison in this game, Gordon Hayward, and Al Jefferson. They're doubling him very quickly, and so he's struggling. Let's just go before we close up here. Our predictions, if we want to change them a little bit, let's look at over our predictions before the series started. I said 5 games. I'm going to call it a sweep now. I just don't see where Utah can do anything to get back. I mean, if anything, and we talked about this, if Utah's going to win, it's because the Spurs lost themselves. You know, they lost it for themselves.
I'm staying with my prediction, which was a sweep coming in. The Spurs just have way too much offensive firepower to the Jazz to give up. And as far as defending Tony Parker, it's pick your poison. He either passes or he scores against them.
Jeff?
I'm going to stick with my prediction 5. I think the Jazz will get 1 in Utah. I think that home crowd, the sense of urgency. Yeah, it's a real tough crowd. It's of urgency, and this is a very prideful team. I think they will get 1, and I think it'll be a dogfight for them. But at the end, it'll just be the Spurs pretty much shooting themselves in the foot, turnovers, maybe relying too much on the three-point shot. And but in the end, I still say Spurs in 5, and they need to get rest as much as they can, because if Memphis or the Clippers either want to advance, you know, that both teams are going to present their issues, whether it be the Clippers' youth or Memphis' size.
All righty, well, that's I guess those are our takes on Game 3 tonight. That is tonight in Salt Lake City. But that's going to be our show for this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week.